Hi all, welcome to Page Up TV where we cover business, technology, politics, and everything else in between. Buckle up. This plane is about to take off and instead of chicken or beef, we are serving news, views, and opinions. So what's on the menu today?
You've got a national police commissioner, a government minister, and a secret order sent right over the holidays to shut down a top-tier elite task force. Now, this isn't some movie script. This is based on real testimony that reveals a major power struggle that goes right to the very top. So let's dig in and unpack what really happened here.
All right, so the story really kicks into high gear on New Year's Eve of 2024. This is when the Minister of Police drops an absolute bombshell.
I mean, just imagine getting a message like this. It is so blunt, so final. The minister's view couldn't be clear. This team, he says, is basically worthless, and it needs to be gone, right now.
And that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Because to really understand why this order sent shockwaves through the system, you have to know who exactly was on the chopping block.
To really grasp the impact of this order, you have to know who we're talking about. See, this wasn't just any old police unit, not by a long shot.
This was the Political Killings Task Team, the PKTT. Now, this group was formed by a presidential mandate, okay? It was an elite squad, the best of the best, put together to fight that terrifying wave of political assassinations happening in KwaZulu-Natal. And their work was so critical that they were later asked to take on other huge, sensitive cases too.
And wow, were they busy! Just look at the sheer volume here. They were juggling over 600 complex cases. And we're not talking about simple stuff. These were often cold cases, extremely sensitive, and downright dangerous to investigate.
And they were getting results. Almost 400 suspects arrested. This wasn't a team just shuffling papers around. They were actively putting alleged killers in jail. Okay, and this is where the story takes a really sharp turn. Because just a little over a year before that shutdown order, the previous police minister was on the record publicly praising the team, calling their work commendable, and saying they had full support from the very top of government. So what gives? How do you go from being hugely successful one minute to totally worthless the next? On the face of it, it just doesn't add up. It seems the real reason might not be about their performance at all, but about the law itself. You know, this entire massive conflict, it really all boils down to a single clause in the South African Constitution. A clause that draws the line between political power and police power. And this is it. Section 207, subsection 2. You can think of this as the official rulebook that's supposed to govern the relationship between the politician, the minister, and the top cop, the national commissioner. And this slide breaks it down perfectly. The minister sets the what. The big picture policy, the national priorities. So the minister might say, our focus is on tackling cash and transit heists. But the commissioner, well, the commissioner controls the how. They decide on the operations, the personnel, the resources, how to actually do the job. So according to the commissioner's own testimony, that order from the minister to disband immediately crossed a huge constitutional line. He saw it not as a policy direction, the what, but as a direct and unlawful interference in the how of policing. And that's his turf.
So what do you do when you're the top cop in the country and you believe you've just been given an unlawful order? Well, the National Commissioner didn't just accept it, he pushed back.
First of all, get this. The order came through on WhatsApp while he was on leave. A leave the minister himself had approved. So the commissioner's first move was to inform the president. Then, as soon as he was back, he flat out rejected his deputy's plan to shut things down immediately, calling it irresponsible. Instead, he ordered a slower, phased wind down. He was buying time and pushing back, not just following orders. But here's where the plot really thickens. Because this order to disband the PKTT wasn't happening in a vacuum. There was another, even more sensitive operation going on in the background.
Right, so this order didn't just come out of nowhere. It turns out some of the PKT's most elite members had just been reassigned to a brand new, highly secret operation, a major counterintelligence investigation.
So this other operation was going after a massive criminal syndicate. The local investigators were getting so many death threats that their team had shrunk from 5 people down to just 2. The commissioner decided to send in the cavalry, 10 elite operators from the PKTT. But here is the crucial part. This investigation had started to identify senior police officers who seemed to have links to that very same syndicate.
And that brings us to this absolutely stunning 48-hour sequence. On January 15th, the commissioner tells his deputy, a Lieutenant General Sabia, to halt the immediate shutdown. The very next day, the 16th, the commissioner briefs the minister, and he names that same deputy, Sabia, as one of the senior officers linked to the criminal syndicate. And then on the 17th, what happens? Sabia defies a direct order from his boss and issues the letter to disband the PKTT anyway. Just wow.
So this whole story, pulled right from official testimony, leaves us with this huge critical question. When that line between setting policy and running police operations gets blurred, or maybe when it gets erased completely, who is really in control? And maybe more importantly, who is actually being protected and who is being served?